Hey, and welcome to All Things Social Security. My name is Stephanie Joy of Joy Disability, and you're about to see a piece of what goes on with our Wednesday live Q&A session. It's a live stream on this channel every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It gives you an opportunity to ask questions and have them addressed on the spot on a first come, first served basis. Otherwise, I also want to welcome you to the channel generally. We have our 12 noon newer time frame, that is, shares of video tips and goings on that occur in the midst of any workday on Social Security and SSI matters, as well as beneficiary matters and other things that go on in our workday that we feel often helps claimants who are pro se and or have a representative, but it's just some information they want to get a better grasp on. So we share them here every day, and I welcome you to join us every day at noon. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Okay, so Jackman says, therapist, psychologist says I'm disabled. State doctor says I'm disabled. Well, it's interesting you say that, Jackman, because the SSA will not accept a medical professional saying someone is disabled from all jobs in the entire economy that are under consideration by the SSA laws. They won't say it. They won't accept it because your psychologist is not a vocational expert who can even testify as to how many jobs are out there, what all vocational aspects they require of you to be able to do, what are the requirements of the job. So how on earth can a psychologist say you can't do job A if he doesn't know what job A is, or job AAA BQZ? You follow? Same with the state doctor. They don't ask the state doctor, are you disabled? So you're mishearing it from somebody or misreading it. What they want from either one of them is a description of how limited you are in a variety of tasks that are relevant to being able to work various jobs. And if they have you at a high level of limitation, based on the definitions of limitations, there could be mildly limited, markedly limited, extremely limited, and depending on where moderately would fall into if they use those terms. But the three that I just mentioned are what the SSA uses, well, including moderate, and moderate will get you nowhere. So it's got to be, for many situations, it's got to be two markeds or one extreme in one of the sections of tasks related to a specific capacity to do something, like to attend to work on a schedule and without distraction and blah, blah, blah. There's like 4 or 5 things in there that are exemplary. And remembering details and work like instructions, that's a whole nother one, and carrying them out and whether they're simple versus detailed. So they don't ask them their opinion on whether you're disabled because they're not qualified. They're just not. They haven't taken vocational classes. They have no idea what the dictionary of occupational title says for each of the 12,000 jobs. So now I will say this, if your therapist, psychologist believes you are disabled from all jobs, even though they're not really educated in that area, that's a good start. You don't want them to say that to the SSA because they're going to get tromped on. And I think it sometimes annoys some of the adjudicators, and it will flat out say that is reserved for the commissioner of the SSA, your little conclusion there. But the fact that they support you is 90% of the battle sometimes, in truth. Now you just have to know, or your lawyer will know, what, you can give them interrogatories. Some of you guys refer to as an RFC, which is kind of the same thing, but an RFC is really created by the SSA. It's a medical source statement as to limitations. You will know, depending on your particular facts in your case, what questions you need to know. And you need that psychologist to say markedly or extremely. Or if you're going for a grid, you might not even need marked or extreme. You might only need moderate, if it's in something that would interfere with your old job or your ability to transfer the skills from that old job to a different job. Hey there, that was one of our little Q&A clips. I hope you found it informative or helpful or just enjoyable. I am attaching a related video that we have put together a while back that is on a similar topic and or an extension of what we were just talking about. So if you needed some more information on that, that's a place to start. You can also look in our playlists. There is a ton of them. I think there's over 1,000 videos. So there's almost every topic in the world touched upon in some way, shape, or form. And again, as a reminder, you can always put in the comments any kind of question you have, even if it's unrelated to this or any other video. I will talk to you later. Carry on. Good afternoon. I was going to address a question that I get a lot, and even online I see it all the time. particularly for a pro se person, should you be asking your doctor for a letter to the SSA? I really think it's kind of, it has a lot of risk to it. All right. If your doctor's recordings in your medical records are really thorough and address not just your diagnoses, but the things that are going on with you in terms of symptoms and limitations at home and all that kind of stuff, then there really wouldn't really be a need for a letter. And the bigger reason, though, is that if a doctor wants to send a letter, off the cuff about you, trying to help you, obviously thinks you have, some sort of disability or limitations or whatever. What we tend to often see is a well-meaning doctor will include some verbiage that he or she does not realize is indicative of not falling on the side of disabled under the SSA policy rules. So they might say, Don can only, I don't expect him to be able to stand or walk more than 4 hours in an 8-hour day. Well, guess what? For many, many people, given their vocational profile or work history and everything else that goes into a decision as to whether you can do your old work, either as you performed it or as it's generally performing in the economy, or any other of the 12,000 jobs out there or more, according to SSA. So if saying, the doctor's thinking 4 hours out of 8 is all he can walk, when a regular person can walk from, morning till night, an unimpaired person, that's significant limitation. And it is. However, it does not necessarily eliminate all jobs from being performed, particularly some sit-down jobs, for instance. So them saying that could actually be the nail in the coffin of your case in a bad way. I mean, you won't be able to be found disabled, potentially, depending on what your vocational profile is. So if your doctor isn't aware of that, and he is maybe not, you believe you can't even be on your feet 4 hours. So now he's thinking that's a lot, but he doesn't actually know what you do at home and how limited you are. All of this can really be worked against you. So I really kind of implore people to not just ask your doctor who's not well-versed in Social Security laws, and there's a ton of them they would have to know, and all of vocational principles. So asking them to do a letter off the cuff oftentimes can be more hurtful than not, particularly if, and then other times the letter just, people get a letter off the cuff and the doctor just confirms their diagnosis and how long they've been treating them. Well, that's evident from the records already, because diagnosis is always in there. He has to have it in order to get insurance payments and everything else. And the dates of treatment are always in there. So it's not necessarily going to be helpful to you. I know it makes you maybe feel like it's going to be bettering your case, but a lot of times, like I said, something very limiting that the doctor thinks it's extremely limiting, but the doctor doesn't understand that that limitation actually works with certain jobs, he can be really hurting your case. So we do ask for medical source statements, and that's what we refer to them as. But when we do them, they are after the plethora of hopeful medical evidence is in, including from that doctor and all the other doctors. And if there is something that the doctor might be willing to confirm that is not really clear from his records, but it's not disputed in his records, because his records have to support his medical source opinion at some point, going down the road. So when you get that letter in. So if his letter is not supported by his own records, certainly if it's not supported by other records, and if, gosh forbid, it's inconsistent with other medical evidence in the record, it's not going to be well taken, and it might just be utterly disregarded. And then there's a risk also of, if they find the doctor lacking in credibility because of this letter, will they also then find his records to not be something to rely upon a lot when making a decision as to how limited you are. So there's a variety of risks. And when we want to get a statement from a doctor, I usually like the doctor to know a little bit about the law that he's referring to. So we have a little guidance page where he can know what certain definitions mean, so that he's not just speaking off the cuff and using language that means not disabled for you. Okay. So we try to make it clear that this word is going to mean that you can do this 2/3 of a workday. This word means only 1/3 of a workday, you know? So without giving him some kind of narrowly defined a question so that he's not answering questions on things he doesn't even treat you for, or if the answer he's going to give because it's accurate is not one that's going to help your case, I don't want to ask him that question. I want to ask him the very limited questions that would be where the answers we know support disabled, what we know to exist from the rest of the file and from you supports disabled, and can't really be twisted in a way that would otherwise be able to hurt you. So it's kind of like threading a little needle. And we don't want to give the doctor, you know, sometimes people throw out these 9-page requests for, it's like an RFC questionnaire that you can get online. And the doctors are just going to say no anyway. And then if they do answer it, they could be answering about, you know, can she use foot pedals? And they have no idea because they treat you for your arm and they're trying to be helpful. So they answer something and it's contradictory to the other evidence. And now credibility is shot. So it's really something you got to be really careful with. I think it's got to be done individually based on your records, and the records have to therefore be full. So you're not really, it's not something you're really necessarily going to do in the first few months of an application. And I'll go even further to say most doctors won't even do them, you know, but there are some that are definitely caring about their patients and know the patient is seriously screwed up and will do them. So they're worth their weight in gold. Some will also charge you, some won't charge you. Some that charge you will be reasonable. Some that charge you will be far from reasonable. Because really what you're just asking them, you don't want them to evaluate you and give you an exam. They've been doing that every time you visit them. We're asking them for their opinion on their patient that they've been treating. So that is a whole nother issue as to the doctors that won't help their patients by at least providing actual information that they have and that they're paid to have, yet then they're not sharing it. But in terms of the danger of asking a well-meaning doctor for a letter without actually honing in carefully and making sure he knows what things you want to know about, what different definitions are. So if he's going to say someone could do something occasionally, he needs to know what that means. Anyway, that's the answer that I would give when my clients say, should I get a letter from so-and-so? I'm like, no. If there's something specific that can be helpful, we will ask it of him. And it would only be if he's not completely contradicting it already in his records. So, you know, you can't, you give him contradictory or he gives contradictory answers. Now everything that he has said is shot. So, you know, you got to be very careful what you wish for, because you might just get it and that might not be what you wanted. All right. So I suggest no letters, actually, since I don't think you're going to know how to do it. It's not something that happens overnight. And it takes me hours to put it together for a client. So, and that's when I know everything that I know their file and I know the law that needs to be applied, but you're always trying to carefully thread that needle and make sure you're not asking the doctor too many things that he's going to be like, I'm not filling this out. You're asking for 10 pages of stuff. I keep mine to 1 page. And each question is only those that would be relevant to the case. And you're not going to know what's relevant to the case. I don't think you are. It's just not, I haven't seen it yet, actually, in a client ever. All right. I will chat with you later. Bye, guys.